One publicly traded company is getting very close to owning 5% of all Ethereum in existence. BitMine says it now holds about 5.85 million Ethereum. That is roughly 4.8% of all Ethereum in total supply, and most of it is already been staked. So this story is bigger than one company simply buying Ethereum. It may be showing us a new way Wall Street is beginning to use Ethereum, not just as an investment, but as a corporate asset that can also produce staking rewards. BitMine released its latest holding update on August 24th. The company says it now owns 5,847,611 Ethereum. At the price used in its announcement, the position was worth more than $14 billion. BitMine has a really clear goal, calls the strategy the Alchemy of 5%. The company wants to own about 5% of all Ethereum in total supply. And according to its latest number, it's almost there. But the more interesting part is what BitMine is doing with Ethereum. The company says more than 5 million Ethereum are already staked. That means BitMine is now just holding Ethereum and waiting for the price to rise. It is putting those assets into Ethereum proof of stake system and earning network rewards. And this is where Ethereum starts to look different from corporate Bitcoin treasury model. Companies like Strategy help popularize the idea of holding Bitcoin as a corporate reserve asset. Buy Bitcoin, hold it on a balance sheet, raise more capital, and potentially buy more. Ethereum can follow part of the same model, but Ethereum has another feature. It can be staked. When Ethereum is staked, it helps secure the Ethereum network. In return, validators can receive rewards. So a company holding Ethereum can potentially benefit in two different ways. The value of Ethereum can change, and the asset itself can also generate staking income. That makes Ethereum a very different type of treasury asset. Underneath all of this is a larger change happening across crypto. For years, institutional crypto adoption was mostly about Bitcoin, Bitcoin ETF, Bitcoin treasury company, Bitcoin custody, Bitcoin mining. Ethereum is now developing more of the same financial systems. At the same time, Ethereum is deeply connected to another major trend: tokenization, stablecoins, tokenized treasury products, digital funds, and other financial assets are increasingly being built on public blockchains. Ethereum remains one of the major networks being used for that activity. So the investment thesis around Ethereum is starting to change. The argument is no longer simply that Ethereum is a cryptocurrency whose price could rise. The bigger argument is that Ethereum could become part of the system behind a more blockchain based financial system. BitMine is making a very aggressive bet on that idea. There are two things I think matter the most here. First is supply. One public company controlling almost 5% of Ethereum is significant, especially when most of those holdings are not being actively traded and much of Ethereum is being staked. That doesn't guarantee the price goes higher, but it does change where some of Ethereum supply is sitting. The second issue is concentration. Ethereum is supposed to be a decentralized network. So if a large company continue accumulating and staking millions of Ethereum, the distribution of that stake becomes increasingly important. BitMine owning almost 5% of Ethereum does not mean BitMine controls Ethereum. But if this corporate treasury trend grows, decentralization will become an important part of the conversation. Institutional adoption can bring more capital into Ethereum, but too much concentration could create a new question for the network. There are three things I would watch from here. First, does BitMine actually reach its 5% target? Second, do other public companies copy the same strategy? And third, does Ethereum continue becoming more important to stablecoins, tokenized assets, and financial identities? Because at the end, the success of this strategy depends on more than companies supply buying Ethereum. It depends on Ethereum itself becoming more useful. Ethereum price has been getting plenty of attention lately, but I think the bigger story may be happening underneath the price. A public traded company now owns almost 5% of Ethereum supply. Most of that position is being staked, and the company is building an entire strategy around owning using Ethereum. That tells us something important. Institutional Ethereum adoption may be moving beyond simply buying the asset. Companies are starting to build businesses around it, and that may be the Ethereum story worth watching next. This is the Crypto Show, and I'll see you on the next video.